it's a bit of an empty spectacle.
Yeah.
Let's say, you know, like the designs are great.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, some of even though these movies cost an estimate shit zillion dollars.
Yeah.
Some of the CGI looks really bad.
Yeah, it's pretty dreadful. Some of it, isn't it?
Yeah. Like I think the orc with like the metal plate in his head.
Yeah.
Bolg.
Yeah.
Looks dreadful.
He does.
I remember some shots of like Ian McKellen like riding a horse, but it's clearly just like him on a blue screen stage. And then there's the romance scenes.
Some of the worst ones, I think that. Well, I don't call it bad. It's just funny. Is where Sauron in that mad acid scene is fighting, and his hair covers all his face.
Oh yeah.
It's clearly a double.
Yeah.
Not Christopher Lee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But where we come to the romance scenes.
Oh yeah. Well, we don't want to get into those yet because technically you're going to go into spoilers there.
Yeah.
Because obviously a big problem is the denouement of that.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, it was going so well for that first hour. The build-up was great.
I was ready to go.
Yeah.
And you know, like even when the battle was beginning, I was getting quite into it. I was like, yeah, this is gonna be awesome. We've set it up really, really well.
Yeah.
And all these armies are coming together, but you know, like all the elements just didn't. Like they set up stuff like the giant bats, for example.
Yeah.
But we don't use them.
The giant worms.
The giant worms that were from Dude. They set that up, and we don't do anything with them.
No.
There's always wonderful ideas, but it wasn't bombastic or crazy enough.
Yeah.
Which I think it should have been. Like, I'd rather have him throw everything but the kitchen sink. Well, I'd rather have him throw everything and the kitchen sink in the final battle, but it just didn't...
Yeah, well, I think the main problem with these films is that there's not enough weight behind the battles for what they're fighting for. As you say, you bring up... So, Two Towers and Return of the King, I've got Minas Tirith and the Helm's Deep one.
Yeah.
So, in Helm's Deep one, you've got, like, they're fighting to protect their whole... their way of life, essentially, and all their families and stuff, because they're all going to get killed by these orcs.
It's like it's like a small army of 200, which gets supplemented by an army of 100 with the elves coming against 10,000, and you're like, oh my god, we're not going to make it. Yeah.
Also, you've got to consider that he also had the ability to cut in between 3 different stories.
Yeah.
So that also helps with the pacing a lot, and also he can return to like Legolas and Gimli.
Exactly.
For a big part of that,
and Aragorn and you other heroes. But like you can cut to Merry and Pippin and know that the battle is still going on.
Yep.
And still have plot development scenes. Also, you cut to like Frodo and Sam.
So even though they were probably a similar length to this, which is 45 minutes, isn't it, the battle sequence?
Yeah.
It feels like there's less in this. Because
you get battle fatigue.
Yeah, you just get tired after like watching people hacking away at each other for so long.
Yeah, there's only so long you do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's again something that the old Peter Jackson was very conscious of.
Yeah.
That's why he cuts to characters like Merry and Pippin.
Yeah.
You know, or cuts to Frodo and Sam for a bit.
Well, yeah, it's like 101 with what to do with a film, isn't it? Keep coming back to what's interesting more than... Yeah.
But even like what frustrated me was like, well, after the first wave was defeated, I was like, oh, that seemed a bit too easy. Oh, there's a second wave coming. Oh, holy shit, there's going to be even more. Oh my god, this is like a flood coming in. But they do the weirdest thing possible. And they just make it like one-on-one fights.
Yeah.
It really confused me.
Well, I just think that like...
The pacing's all off.
Yeah, it is. The pacing... What annoyed me was the way that it did the thing where it looks like they're losing.
Yeah.
And then like... I think we'll get into the spoiler bit now.
We may as well, yeah.
I
think this whole thing spoilers.
From this point forward, these will be proper spoilers. Now, before, I think there's no that wasn't revealed by a synopsis or a thing, but this point forward, you're in spoiler territory now. Population, us.
Yes.
Yeah, but anyway, what annoyed me was that they do the thing where it looks like they're losing.
Yeah.
And then, they do this in Lord of the Rings all the time. It looks like they're losing, and then someone comes in to rescue them. Minas Tirith, it's the ghosts. It's Gandalf in the end of
the the best moment that happens.
But the what made those ones a success is it's the end of the battle when they come in, and it's like this big moment where everyone already won and stuff.
Yeah.
But in this, it looks like they're losing, and then Thorin runs out, and he's like meant to be this big. It's like this big hero moment.
Oh yeah.
And then,
all 13 dwarves were not like they're going to make any difference.
Yeah, but it's like they do build it up, don't they? As if he's going to win single-handedly, because he's going to unite the dwarves. And then, then they just fight for another 20 minutes.
Yeah, but then after that, what annoyed me was logic dictates that the second wave is going to come in, but I don't like how they made it all about sneaking about one-on-one fights. It just doesn't work.
No.
I was almost half expecting, because they go this watchtower because they know a second wave is coming in from Gundabad.
Yeah.
So they sneak up to this icy tower and to basically can cut the head off the snake and kill Azog. But I was almost expecting them to fall into the trap and Keely gets stomped by hundreds of thousands of orcs. That'd have been great.
Yeah.
But say he gets killed. But by the way, spoilers. He gets killed.
Well, we've said this is spoiler town now.
He gets murdered.
Yeah.
And so does Feely. They both get killed. And then it descends into a one-on-one fight between Thorin and Azog.
Yeah. That scene was funny because it does loads of fake outs where it looks like he's lost. But then he comes back. Then it looks like he's lost. Then he comes back.
There's a really weird scene where Azog falls under the water.
That's weird.
And he's floating and you think he's dead or he's dying. And him and Thorin kind of look at each other and Azog's like.
Then he opens his eyes and
he stabs him. He's like, what? Okay, how did he get the weight off his leg?
Yeah.
But whatever. So then Azog kills Thorin.
Yeah.
Which is in the book. Well, Azog doesn't kill Thorin, but Thorin does get killed. Thorin gets killed, but it's not like that in the book.
No.
Because Azog's not in the book.
Yeah.
And then Bilbo runs across, and then the second wave's about to come in, but then those goddamned eagles.
Those eagles come.
But see, I think he was trying to downplay the triumphant moment of the eagles.
Really?
Because Bilbo's saying to Thorin, as he's dying, look, the eagles are coming. The eagles are coming.
Yeah.
And there was a really funny moment when Bilbo's like, doo!
Yeah.
And there was laughter in the cinema.
Yeah, loads of people laughed.
This was quite funny.
It was quite funny.
It was like, doo!
Yeah.
It was maybe the only misstep of Martin Freeman in this entire trilogy.
Yeah.
Was that little whimper. Maybe Peter Jackson added that.
Yep.
It wouldn't surprise me.
In post credits, George Lucas style.
Yeah. But the pacing is just off.
Yeah.
And wrong.
Yeah.
Logic dictates you need to keep the momentum of the battle going or people will get bored.
Yeah.
And they just grind it to a halt for basically one character I guess we semi-care about and the two attractive dwarves, so I guess some people care about that.
Yeah.
It's oh no, he's dead. Do you remember when Boromir gets killed, in the first one? That's heart-wrenching. But because Boromir is an interesting, complex character, not a vaguely pretty dwarf.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or his brother.
Oh, his brother, yeah. The brother of a vaguely attractive dwarf.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. It did not work for me, and I don't understand why they went down that route. I understand doing the one-on-one fight between Thorin and Azog.
Yeah.
I get that, but
well, that could have really worked really well if they'd have built up to it more, actually developed the two characters more, and as well if they didn't keep doing fake outs where he's under the water. If it had been half the length of it and stuff, it would have worked.
Or like I said, maybe have the other characters surrounding Thorin in the big battle, a second wave's coming, looks like they're losing and Azog's beating the shit out of him. Yeah. I mean the fight itself is fine between the two of them. It's well choreographed, it's well shot. It all looks a little bit too rehearsed, but no, my worst element of the film was the love stuff.
Oh yeah. So basically when L'Oreal discovers that he's in the trap, Keely is in the trap bit, so she goes to get him and then Legolas goes after her. Yeah. Because he loves her so much.
But the Legolas moments I think are one step too far.
The Legolas moments are dreadful.
Yeah.
Do you remember the bit where he jumps over the falling bridge, completely defying any kind of logic or gravity?
Yeah, I remember well.
Like, what was his need to put that in?
Or like where like Legolas jumps onto like a bat and he flies around with the bat. That was like something from a fucking video game.
That looked awful.
Oh no, it was dreadful looking.
Yeah. So yeah, basically. Yeah. So L'Oreal goes to help Keely and Philly.
Yeah.
To
and Tilly and Jilly.
Yeah. So she goes to try and rescue him because he's the pretty one.
Yeah.
And then she tragically watches him die, and it's meant to be this really sad, tragic moment, but it just doesn't really register, is it?
And then she just falls into being like, help me! It's like, so, okay, I was willing to give the filmmakers the benefit of the doubt for Toriel in the first one.
Oh yeah.
So in the second one, I was thinking, okay, she's a bit shit, but maybe they'll do something in the third one. Maybe this character's going to pay off. But no, they make it, her entire character is about being in love with a man.
Yep.
It's fucking bullshit.
Well, and also she gets rescued.
Yeah, she does,
like, constantly.
Yeah.
How does that work? She's meant to be this, like...
badass elf warrior.
Badass elf who was kicking ass in the second one.
Yeah.
And stuff. And then, like, she like... isn't as powerful as this dwarf, whose main characteristic was the fact that they're like a ragtag bunch of
like misfits. Basically.
Yeah, they're meant to be these misfits who haven't got much fighting experience. And then she gets rescued by one of them, and then Legolas has to like help her afterwards.
Yeah, I remember there's the awful scene where like she's talking to Thranduil at the end. And she's like dying. She's not dying. She's crying over the corpse of Keely, and she's like, "If this is what love is, I don't want it." And then Thranduil's like, "It must have meant it was real."
Yeah.
They are borderline George Lucas.
Well, I think that is as bad as Gets Everywhere.
Nothing's as bad as nothing's as bad as that, but it was close.
Yeah, it was just dreadful, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really horrific.
Horrific. So bad that last. So
we get on to like, because this is part of how frustratingly rushed the ending is. Yeah. I was frustrated at the end because you've spent 9 hours of storytelling, and you're not going to show who's going to inherit the Lonely Mountain now that Thorin Oakenshield, because Keely and Feely are like his nephews. Yeah. So basically, the line is dead. Who's going to look after the Lonely Mountain? What's happened to Bard? Yeah. Why the fuck did they include a reference to Legolas hunting down Aragorn, even though he's only going to be like 10 years old at the time of The Hobbit?
Yeah.
What else did we miss out? What happens to Toriel? Even though I don't care. What happens to Toriel?
Yeah.
What happens to Bard? Does Bard become the leader of this new group of people?
Yeah. Well, what happens to Lake Town?
What happens to the people of Lake Town?
Yeah.
Do they stay in Dale? All these questions left lingering, and there are questions unanswered in the ending of... Now, I think this is all done in response to the criticism that The Lord of the Rings are too many endings, which I completely disagree with, because I think it's just right. After 9 hours of storytelling, close to 12 if you're watching the extended cuts, I think you want a long ending.
I think it works at home if you're watching them all after each other.
Yeah.
I think the problem is within a self-contained film, it's self-indulgent, but within a big thing, it's
well,
not.
That's the thing, it's part of one... whole, isn't it?
I can understand why when it came out originally it got criticised for that, because it is indulgent to have
a long film
in one film, but if you look at it instead as a 12-hour epic that you watch at home, then it's okay.
It's what you want, ultimately. I think even if you're watching it just on separate occasions in the cinema, certainly I would have been horribly disappointed if The Lord of the Rings ended
like this,
like the way that did. Even like back in the day of like being in the cinema, I'd rather have a nice long ending to this epic saga that rounds off the characters. Than a rushed hodgepodge.
And I mean, he didn't need to do an ending that big, because ultimately there aren't as many characters. So they didn't need as many conclusions. You only really need to conclude the stuff with the Lonely Mountain and Bard and Bilbo. Yeah. Because that's the only things you really care about.
Yeah, ultimately now, yeah. So like...
Who did they give an emotional payoff to? Legolas.
Yeah, Legolas gets a moment at the end.
That was bizarre. It's like, who thought that was a good idea? Let's not give the dwarves like a conclusion or Bard. Let's give Legolas.
The dwarves just kind of stand there awkwardly, like, yep, this is it now.
Well, they're filming a microcosm's the end bit. So Bilbo says leaves to go back to the Shire.
Yeah.
And then what happens? Like all the dwarves you're not going to leave without saying goodbye, are you?
Yeah.
And then he looks at them all and he's like, bye. And then there's just there's 10 left at that point. And like most of them haven't had any dialogue in the film.
That one's not said I had a single word of dialogue
In the whole trilogy.
No.
No. So yeah,
But-
it's basically just him saying like you might as well be talking to like some plants or something.
Yeah.
All the audience cares.
And then like Bilbo goes back with Gandalf, and I even think Gandalf's essential exit from the series was a bit unsatisfying.
Yeah.
And Bilbo comes back and he finds his home's being raided and
Yeah.
sold off for auction, which I didn't really see the point of.
No.
I felt like an extended cutscene.
Yeah.
And then Bilbo goes back into his home. There is one great bit of acting for Martin Freeman where he kind of, it's like, because like Gandalf approaches Bilbo about a magic ring, and he's like, "You will be very careful with those magic rings," and Bilbo's like, "Oh, I lost it," and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
When he goes back into his home and he has a sly little look at the ring, and it's a great moment. And then it cuts
To Ian Holm.
and it leads into the first movie, directly into the first movie.
Yeah, doesn't it end? Doesn't it end with the bit where when Gandalf's at his
Yeah,
door?
yeah. No, thank you. No wizards or well-wishers or distant relations. But how about very old friends?